Hello, greetings from London. I'm Sergio, and this is Jose. And we're here today to talk to you about the Host API again, the AdSense Host API. And this time we're going to be addressing the topic of migration for those of you that were hosts with us already in version 3 and are now migrating to version 4.1.
Thanks. All right. First of all, Sergio is going to talk about the new technology used on the new API. It's no longer a SOAP API. That's a good thing.
Yes, developers seem to appreciate that.
Yeah. Then he'll talk about account creation and association, the relation between accounts and ad clients. And then I'll talk about ad code generation, ad units, the new channels, and the new reporting system, which is very different from the previous one. Okay, so.
Right, so in terms of technology, in the new Host API, we follow the same general technology stack that is used in other Google APIs, the more recent ones that you might be familiar with. So, whereas in the old API, this was SOAP-based, relatively old technology, and as I'm sure many of you are aware, full of little implementation problems and issues that you need to solve on a regular basis for every programming language. Now we are taking a more up-to-date approach with a RESTful design. The technology we're using for communication instead of XML now is JSON as well, which is a more it's a format which is easier to put into your programming because it maps native programming language constructs instead of just being a large document, a large set of text. Also, in the old API, since this was a SOAP technology, it used WSDLs together with code generation to produce stubs that you use in your programming language to give you the classes or the objects that you need to access the API. Whereas in the new API, again, this is all a RESTful design, RESTful JSON, so you can make raw requests against the API in HTTP, but you can also use one of our client libraries, which we've gone to considerable effort to develop and to make available for several programming languages. Most of the popular ones are there. These client libraries are generic, so you can actually use them with not just with the AdSense Host API, the AdSense Management API, but all Google APIs that are built on this new technology stack. And some of them require you to download some stuff. Some of you require you to generate things automatically. You have a lot more information on this on our website if you need to know more. And then finally, for authentication, we're switching from the old system, client login, which is essentially just providing the username and password of the account as part of the request that you make. We're now using a more secure, more up-to-date system. We're using OAuth 2, which if you want to know more about OAuth 2, again, you can go to our website, or you can watch our previous live event on the introduction to the AdSense Host API. Right, so what other benefits do we get from this new technology stack? Well, probably the tool that is most representative of what you can do with this new technology stack is the APIs Explorer, which draws upon the different functionality that we have, like the discovery documents that fully describe a service, and the discovery service, which allows you to retrieve the up-to-date versions of all the discovery documents for all the APIs, and automatically creates a form with all of the different parameters and all of the different methods for an API, and allows you to actually make requests in the browser to test out without having to write any code. So if you're just starting your v4.1 development, and by the way, if you are, you do need to hurry up because we are ending the v3 version of the API this quarter. So if you are just starting your development, do be sure to check out the APIs Explorer, make a couple of requests before you actually start doing any coding, because it's a lot easier to get started that way. So moving on to account creation and association, this was a rather lengthy, painful process in V3 because we required all hosts to collect this data from their users. So you had to collect things like phone hints and zip code hints and all sorts of data that really is important for Google, but probably not important for you as a host. But due to the way that the process was set up, you had to collect all of this data, send it to us, then continuously check for validation and any problems, etc. This involved a complicated flow, which sent emails to the customer and required constant polling to check the status of the association, etc. We've done away with all of this. In the new API, we have a much simpler mechanism, which is built on callbacks. Essentially, what happens is you as a host start an association session. This association session gives you a URL. You send the user to this URL. They land on an AdSense page, an AdSense website page, which allows them to either log in with their existing account to choose to associate it with your host account, or allows them to create a new one in case they don't have one yet. And basically guides them through the entire process, collects all of the details that are necessary from them, Google account details, AdSense account details, billing details, everything. And then once that is done, sends the user back to your page on a callback URL that you specify. On this callback URL, you'll get a little parameter. This little parameter allows you to get all of the details that you need, specifically the account ID that you just associated. And if you need more details on this, we have a full guide on the new sign-up procedure. And again, we go into a little bit more detail as well on our previous live event when we discussed the host API in general. So here we've got an overview of the entire process after an association has been made. So once you move on to this step where you receive the little token, it's called a token, isn't it? The parameter. I'm not entirely sure of the name. I think it's token. Yeah. So once you get this little token, you can actually make a verify call against the API. This would be association sessions.verify. And you'll either get a pending response saying that it hasn't yet been completed, or an error if the user declined or something along those lines. Or you'll get that it's been verified, and you'll get the publisher ID. And once you do get this publisher ID, you need to make sure you store it. So this is very important. There are some methods in the API that allow you to retrieve accounts, but there isn't a single method that lists all of them. So you need to make sure that you always store the publisher ID that you get back. Otherwise, it might be very difficult for you to get that in the future.
Actually, you would have to make all the association again, right?
You would probably need to associate the account again, at which point it would say that it's already associated and presumably give you back the publisher ID. But again, I want to stress this out. Make sure you store this locally on your end, this publisher ID, because this is what will allow you to make any requests on this publisher account that you've just associated. So I was talking a little bit about publisher accounts. There's another level in the entire account structure that this diagram tries to illustrate. Specifically, inside the publisher account, you can have several AdSense products. You might be a host that only has one AdSense product, or you might have several of them. If your users, remember, you can be associating existing accounts already, so it could be that your user already has several AdSense products enabled on their account. These products inside an account show up as an ad client. This is an entity that we have that represents this connection between a product and an account. So for each account, you'll have an account ID, and for each product, you'll have an ad client ID. So the confusion where it might come in with regards to older versions of the API is that in V3, we used the same ID for everything, which is effectively the ad client ID. It would be something along the lines for AdSense for content, for example. It would be CA-pub-16 digits. This is what we now call the ad client ID. This only serves to refer to the AFC product inside a user's account, for example. The other ID, the account ID, is the one that allows you to refer to a publisher's account as a whole, independent of the product that you're using. This would be just, in the same example, pub dash the 16 digits. So the CA prefix here denotes content ads or AdSense for content. Now, there are exceptions in which the IDs do not follow this exact structure, but for the vast majority of them, they do follow this structure. But if they don't, and if you come across an ID which is CA, isn't CA-pub-something or the equivalent for other AdSense products, then we do have a method under accounts.list which allows you to specify the ad client ID, and this will give you the corresponding publisher account ID. This is important if you're migrating users from v3 to v4.1 and you only have the ad client IDs and you need to find out what their publisher ID is. But in most cases, you can just remove the prefix and call that the publisher account ID. All right.
Okay, let's talk about ad units. The process is similar to v3, but now if you want to show ads, you have to create this new entity called the ad unit. An ad unit is the slot in which the ads are displayed. This is an improvement because if you want to change a property on an ad unit, like for instance colors, if you want to change the colors or the font family, you don't have to generate all the codes again, every code again. You just modify the property on the ad unit. Also, this is handy if you want to track the performance of a specific ad unit. Now you have an ID, so you can use that on the new reporting system, although just for the publisher side of reporting, I think.
Right. Well, there's one important thing to note about these properties, though. There are a couple of properties in there that you cannot change.
You cannot change size.
Right. This is because it would create page rendering issues.
Actually, the size is hard-coded into the code.
Exactly.
The JavaScript code, so you can't change that. Okay, there's a whole guide covering this topic in the AdSense host documentation, so take a look at it. We should say that v3 code will continue working. Everything will show ads, and you will get earnings as you did before, but you won't be able to track them. That's very important. So make sure you generate an ad unit for at least an ad unit for every publisher or for each ad client, right? And that you regenerate the code for each ad unit. Okay.
This is important, particularly if you want publisher-side tracking, publisher-side reporting.
Of course. Okay, so the new channels. Channels no longer belong to the publisher. In v3, there were no such thing as host channels. So
well, I'm not entirely sure about that, but I know that there were publisher channels at least.
Well, yeah. So now all we have is host channels.
Yeah,
that's that is true. So now you can share a channel between paths, between publishers. This is a very good thing because there's no need to create one custom channel. If you want to use channels, there's no need to create one per publisher. This is handy because, for instance, if you want to track the performance of the, imagine you have a top ad slot and a side ad slot on your web page, and you want to track the performance of the top ad slot against the side one, then you can create one custom channel for the top one and one for the side banner. There's no need to create one for each publisher. So you have to, in the code generation stage, you apply this custom channel to each of the ad units, and you can easily report on them.
Right.
But well, channels let you track data, but you may not need channels at all because of the new reporting system, in which you can track things like sizes.
Right.
So if your top ad is in a particular size, you can track it against the rest of them. So actually, I don't think you can find a reason for using channels. Maybe if you have a set of users, premium users, and you want to tag every single ad unit that they have, something like that. But with the new reporting system that is really, really flexible. We went from a template system in V3 to an on-the-fly generation system. So now we have a list of metrics that you can use and a list of dimensions. You can combine them, filter them, and sort them to generate the reports. You have things like number of ad requests, clicks, earnings, of course, and for the dimensions, you have ad unit IDs, channels, countries, whatever you can think of. Basically, you have all you need there. And one thing to note is that we used to have host side reporting, and now we have both host side and publisher side.
Right.
The difference is subtle, but it's very important. If you're reporting from the publisher side, you only see what the publisher, for instance, if you're reporting on earnings, you only see what the publisher makes for himself or herself.
Exactly.
If you report from the host side point of view, then you get the earnings that the publishers have made for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's
it's a subtle distinction, but actually publisher side reporting is a hugely requested feature from the time of V3, and given the new use of ad units, we can finally bring it to you and make sure that not only can you find out how much money you're making as a host, but you can also tell your publishers how much money they're making through the use of your website.
Yep. Okay, so I think that's it.
Well, that covers most of what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Shall we take a look at our moderator page before we say our goodbyes? See if we have any questions this time.
Yeah. Okay, there's nothing. So
there's no questions. All right. Well, we're used to that by now, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And I just want to point out a couple of things before you go. Again, we have our developer blog. Feel free to go there. We post every now and again with different topics, tips, tricks. We're gonna have a blog post about tips and tricks, gotchas with migration from V3 to V4.1. You can also follow us on our Google Plus page for Google Ads developers, where we have news about all Google Ads APIs, not just AdSense. And if you have any questions, any technical issues, just come to us on the forums. We monitor them regularly, and people answer each other's questions as well. So we hope we have enough resources.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.